right. So I want to invite our panelists to come up to the stage. This is the panel called The Field of Success. And this is a great chance to learn about the pathways that many of the mathematicians that have been at the Math Alliance have been going through. Of course, our paths have been all different, and they're not a straight line. So we want to invite our panelists to answer those questions. And so I'm going to invite Joan Ponce from Arizona State University to come up the stage. And then Talon Johnson from UT Arlington, come up to the stage. And then Erica Dawson from the CDC, come up to the stage. Okay. We have a couple of microphones. If you guys want to share, there's only two, so just grab one. All right. Okay, so hopefully people can see me from here. I think people cannot see me if you're back there. Okay. So I want to start by just letting our panelists just introduce themselves. And I want you to be sort of brief on this. So please tell us where you got your degree from, bachelor's, master's, PhD. What are you doing now? Where are you located? Which institution? And what kind of math are you doing? Without going into too much detail. And one fun fact about yourself. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am Erica Dawson. I went to Fort Valley State University for my undergraduate degree, majored in mathematics, and then I went on to the University of Northern Iowa. I did a bridge program at the University of Northern Iowa with the University of Iowa, where I was supposed to be going on to get my PhD in statistics, but I ended up getting my master's in mathematics and then my master's in statistics from Iowa State, and then took a break and decided that I really wanted to go back to school and pursue my PhD. And so I looked around and I found one of the best universities, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and that is where I got my PhD in biostatistics. So for fun, I like to cook, so I'm actually working on a food blog. So that's a fun fact about me. That's what I do outside of statistics. And as he said, I work at the CDC, so I work with the nation's largest telephone-based survey called the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, and I do more data management than statistics, but if I do statistics, it's more of like general linear models.
Hi, everyone. My name is Talon Johnson. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I received my bachelor's in mathematics at Morehouse College in 2016, and I went on to do the BS to PhD program at UT Arlington, and I got my PhD in 2021 in mathematics as well. I'm currently a NSF Ascending postdoctoral fellow, where I'm currently in collaborations with both UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, Texas, as well as University of Texas at Arlington as well, where I study a lot of things in data acquisition for MRI images, as well as image segmentation. One fact about me. Well, I draw a lot, so I'm trying, like, as you starting a vlog, I'm trying to start my own little vlog of drawings that I do, as well as I love to run. I'm trying to train up for a 10K one day.
Hi everyone, my name's Joan Pons, and I started my math journey at the University of Florida, where I got my bachelor's in mathematics. I continued to obtain my PhD from Purdue University back in 2020. I work in applied dynamical systems, specifically mathematical biology. So I did my first postdoc at UCLA in the medicine department, working on geospatial modeling. Now I am at Arizona State University. I'm a presidential postdoctoral scholar there, and I am doing a lot of research in malaria, both from a population point of view and a vector modeling perspective. And one fun thing, I also just started training for a 10K.
Okay, maybe we should all sign up for a 5K at some point. All right, so I just want to make a quick announcement before we get started with the questions. In the Cvent app, you can log into the session, and there is a, let me just look at it real quick. There is a live Q&A button there. You can ask questions through there, and they will come to me. And so if you do ask a question, then I will try to get them through to the panel as quickly as possible, okay? So that's a quick way to participate. Of course, if you want to ask a question to the panel and raise your hand, you can do that as well. I'll come by to you and give you the microphone, okay? So let's kick this off with a couple other questions I have here prepared. Let me just access them real quick. So my first question to the panelists is, how did you pick your grad school?
Okay, so I guess I'll go first. So during my senior year at Fort Valley, I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school, but honestly, I hadn't prepared for it, meaning I had not taken the GRE and, well, no, I take that back. I had taken the GRE, but I had not done the best, and I was really discouraged because of my GRE scores, so I just did not apply. And I remember moping around one day, and my department chair was like, "What's going on?" And I was just like, I really want to go to graduate school, but I didn't do well on the GRE. What do I do? And she was like, "Well, you know what? That's okay." She said, "I've been there before." She said, "You really want to go to graduate school?" And I said, "I do." And she said, "Let me make a couple of phone calls." And she called one of my favorite professors who is in this room right now. Didn't know him at the time, but she called him up, Dr. Douglas Mupaseri, sitting right there in the back. She called... She called him up. She said, "Hey, Dr. Mupaseri, I have a student who's really interested in graduate school in mathematics. Do you think that you could help her?" And he said, "Hey, we have this alliance program where we're trying to increase the number of underrepresented groups in the quantitative sciences with doctoral degrees. Why don't you tell her to give me a call?" And so I gave him a call. He encouraged me to apply, and I applied, and just like that, I got accepted with funding. And so I didn't apply anywhere else. My story will be very different from a lot of you all's story, but I did not apply anywhere else. Once I talked with Dr. Mupaseri, I felt like this was meant to be. And so I went on there to the University of Northern Iowa, completed my master's degree, had an excellent time there. The department was very supportive. As you know, Iowa doesn't have a lot of people that look like me. So the department, they really went out of their way to make the, underrepresented groups of people in the department feel very comfortable and feel like we were a part of the department, just like everyone else. So while I was at Northern Iowa, I knew that if I completed my master's degree there, then I was guaranteed a spot in the PhD program at the University of Iowa or Iowa State in the Department of Mathematics. Well, right before graduation, the Department of Statistics at Iowa State opened up their offer, and I started looking at the job marketability, and I said, you know what? I think I might be more marketable as a statistician than a mathematician. So I'm going to pursue my PhD in statistics at Iowa State. So went on to Iowa State, and the department at Iowa State was very different from the University of Northern Iowa. The University of Northern Iowa is a very small department. Iowa State is a huge department. And so I felt like I was just one in the number. And I also got pregnant while I was there. And I don't, if you guys ever want to ask me questions, you can ask me questions after the panel, and I will be very transparent with you. I don't want to be so transparent up here about my experience at Iowa State, but I just didn't have a very good experience at Iowa State, and it left me broken. And I was just like, you know what? I don't want to go to graduate school anymore. Let me just go ahead and complete the master's requirements, and let me get out of here and work and take care of me and my child. And so I left for about 2 years, came back home to Georgia. I taught at a community college, so Georgia Military College and Kaiser University online. And while I was teaching, I realized that I really had a love for mathematics and teaching people and just seeing them, seeing the light go off in their head when they finally realize, like, I can do this stuff. And I'm like, man, like, I do love this. Like, I shouldn't allow a bad experience to stop me from pursuing my PhD. And so I also looked at the fact that as a mathematics instructor compared to a PhD, I was making a lot less money. And I'm like, if I'm gonna be doing the same thing as someone with a PhD, but getting paid like at least $30,000 less, I think it might be a smart choice for me to go back to school and get my PhD, in statistics. And so I talked with one of my mentors. She's not in the room, but her name is Nagamble Shaw. So some of you all may know that name, but she was very instrumental in my PhD journey. So in addition to Dr. Mupaseri, that's another person that I can say really helped me along the way. And she pretty much sat down with me. She said, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to work in government? Do you want to work in industry? Do you want to work in academia? Whatever you want to do, I'm going to help you do that. And so I told her, I was like, I'm really interested in working, being in academia, but I want to get my PhD in statistics, but I'm very interested in the social sciences. So she said, hey, have you thought about biostatistics? And I was like, no, I haven't thought about biostatistics. And so I started looking at biostat programs and realized that I wanted to do more biostats than statistics, because biostatistics is a lot more specialized than statistics. And so there are more opportunities in public health for a biostatistician. And that's how I ended up in biostatistics and went on to the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And I have another professor in the audience, Dr. Leslie McClure. She was the first person that I met, with visiting UAB. And pretty much from talking with her as well as talking with the students, they sold me on the program. And so that's how I made my decision. And I'm sorry that I'm taking so much time. I don't know how much time we actually have with the panel, but I just want you guys to know that, it doesn't matter what your journey looks like, even if your journey looks totally different from somebody else. If you have passion for whatever you want to do, go for it, and don't allow anyone to tell you otherwise.
So my story, as you said, everybody's story is different. I originally wasn't a math major coming into Morehouse. I originally was going to be a poli-sci major and thinking I'm going to be the best contract lawyer ever. He's not in here, but Dr. Cooper, Dr. Wayne Cooper, well, he's not here currently, but I remember coming into his office my first week at Morehouse, and he looked at my schedule and said, oh, I'm looking at your academic record, why don't you become a math major? And I said, nah. And he said, well, if anything, you're going to take Cal 1 with me. And I was like, well, I took calculus A, B, B, C in high school. And he's like, you don't know calculus. And I was like, okay. So I took it with him. And a week later, I became a math major. From there, it came to me. He came to me probably, I think, the beginning of my sophomore year, and asked me, "What do you want to do with your math degree? Do you know?" And I was like, "I really don't know what's there and available for me." And he was like, "Well, there's all kinds of things you can do." And he introduced me to the FGAP program, and had mentors there. And then at the same time, they hired a new professor named Dr. Shelby Wilson, who was my research advisor for undergrad research at Morehouse while I was there. And her and Dr. Cooper definitely really helped my trajectory on where I wanted to do. And so as I went through undergrad, I went to a few REUs, and I did some combinatoric REU, and didn't really enjoy that as much as I thought. And then I told myself, well, I really like the natural sciences. I like the biology, and two, is there any relationship with that? And sure enough, Shelby was like, well, that's what I do. And so I ended up doing some research with Shelby for about 2.5 years with her under the MARC program, and I ended up going to another REU, NIMBUS, the National Institute for Mathematical Biology Synthesis, and it kind of solidified that this is what I like to do as a mathematician. The question about PhD came a little, during my junior year. Shelby came to her office, and she told me, "You thinking about going to grad school?" And I told her, "Not really." She's like, "Yes," and I said, "Maybe." So but through my experiences during that time, I really did like discovering new things and understanding things and stuff. So I was like, I think I really do want to do the PhD. The question is, how do I get there? How do I get there? Thanks to being part of the AFGAP program, I was able to talk to some mentors. My mentor at the time, and still is, and as well as other people from different institutions that I've encountered during conferences or at the REUs themselves. So I was able to get insight on what it is like to do graduate school. And I was lucky enough to apply for a few places and get accepted into them, as well as having funding. I ultimately chose University of Texas at Arlington because they were one of the few schools that said, "Hey, you want to come down to visit?" And I said, "Sure." I came to visit. I got to talk to some of the faculty, but ultimately that really solidified my decision on there was to go there was the students. They seemed really happy. They seemed really happy with the community that they built up over there, and I wanted to be a part of that community. And sure enough, it was the best decision for me, because if it wasn't for that community, I don't think I would have gotten to where I am now. And I'm not going to say it's all sunshine and rainbows. There's definitely times where I felt that this is hard. I want to give up. I want to cry. I want to just go home. But the people that are around me were very supportive and very aware of the mental and physical well-being of all their students, and especially during COVID, where everybody was being tested, right? So that's why I ultimately chose to go to UTA, and as well as it's close to home. So that was a plus one to that as well. And here I am now with a PhD and a postdoc, looking for the next job.
Right, so I'm glad that you guys went first. My path is a little bit less exciting. I kind of always knew that I wanted to pursue a PhD, so during my undergrad, it was a matter of trying to figure out how to fill in the prerequisites and become the best candidate for a PhD program, and that's how I connected with the National Alliance as well, because I did a lot of just asking around, and I only had So I transferred in undergrad from Ecuador. I did 2 years there, and then I did 2 years at the University of Florida. So it was kind of a marathon to try to get into an REU as a senior. Tried to get all the applications in. So I decided that due to the short amount of time, I would take a gap year in between undergrad and graduate school. And although I would say most of my professors recommended against it, it gave me time to prepare the graduate research fellowship application for the NSF, and allowed me a lot of time to get feedback from my professors, get all my exams done with plenty of time to spare. And I was able to go to Purdue University funded through the GRFP. So that was a huge advantage of kind of taking a pause in between phases, prepping as well as I could for graduate school. And I chose Purdue in particular because I had met my graduate advisor during a summer program, and I think REUs are an invaluable experience to undergraduate students. It puts you in contact with a lot of people that you would otherwise not meet. And it was a fantastic program with a great community, a lot of students, and that was one of the things that I did pay attention to. I was aware that in a smaller program, I maybe would have struggled to fit in socially because you have less of a choice, right? In a bigger program, I was able to secure a solid group of friends that kind of, we all kind of pull the group through graduate school, so, thanks.
Okay, I got a bunch of questions from the audience already, and this goes along with what Joan was talking about. Would you recommend gaps between higher educational degrees to work in industry and gain experience, or just enter the next program to maintain momentum? That's kind of what you already said, but do y'all want to? What is your recommendation?
Yeah, so I will say that I was afraid to take a gap year because I thought that if I took a gap year and I started working and I got used to getting money, that when it was time to go to graduate school and no longer get the same amount of money, it would be really hard. So I did not take a gap year initially. But as I mentioned to you all, when I left Iowa State, I ended up being out of school for 2 years. And had I not done that, I probably would not have gone back to get my PhD, because by taking that time off, that was when I had time to really see, like, hey, I really love this stuff. Like, let me not allow this bad experience to stop me from pursuing my PhD. So I feel like you really have to think about yourself, your goals, and if you're really prepared to go on to graduate school. Like, if you feel like you're burnt out, then take a gap year. It's okay. Like, somehow things just work out. And that's how I look at everything. Like, I look at my entire journey, and I feel like nothing happened in vain. Like, everything happened exactly the way that it was supposed to happen, and I ended up where I am because of how things happen. So don't be afraid to just kind of step out on faith. If you feel like, I'm just tired of school, even though I want to go on, but I'm not really certain. Because if you're not certain, then you may not make the best choices if you continue on. So I would definitely encourage you to do some soul searching and then decide, like, okay, is this the right thing for me? So don't completely close the door to having a year off.
Anything you want to add?
Nothing much I can add on to that, because I think what both of you said is the right thing, especially when it comes down to deciding about grad school. Sometimes it can be a timely thing, right? Like, you may not want to do it now. Maybe you need to refresh. Undergrad's still hard for a lot of us, right? Coming out of it, it's 4 years of your life, 4 years of your life trying to obtain something that you worked so hard on. And sometimes you just need that refresher just to debrief. And if you want to go out, and explore things that year or two, that's fine. That's completely fine. If you want to go immediately go make some money, go do it. If you in grad school is always going to be there. It's always going to be there. So you can always go back anytime you want. That's all I can.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Were there times during grad school when you fell behind in your coursework? If so, how did you catch up? I see a yes in every face.
Right, so falling behind in coursework in graduate school is very common. One of the advantages of being in a PhD program is also that although you're held to different standards, they also treat you like an adult, which is a big difference from undergrad. So, and professors appreciate that you want to take time to understand the concepts. In graduate school, you are valued for what you can do, what you can learn, and not how fast. Of course, there is a limit, but a lot of my classmates, some of the best students in my class, would approach the professor and ask for extensions on the homework because they wanted to maybe prove it in a slightly different way than was standard or explore other options. And most professors were very reasonable in that sense. I would think that whenever there was a lack of interest in the topic, that's when things actually became challenging. Some prerequisites that perhaps, that I was not interested in, but I knew that I had to fulfill them. And so what would happen is we would fall behind, and it was usually sometimes the applied people in the pure math classes. And so we would band together and do kind of crash sessions over the weekends, 2 weeks before the exam or 3 weeks before the exam, because we knew we were, none of us had understood anything. So we would usually have an older student that we would persuade to help us out maybe for an hour or two. So through community is how I managed to catch up, although I'm still catching up with a bunch of concepts that did not sink in. And I think you're always going to continue learning throughout your life, so still catching up.
I'm gonna steal something what Noel and I were talking about earlier. In undergrad, it seems as though you are learning things very fast-paced and to understand for a grade as well, right? A lot of people take it for a grade and not necessarily try to dissect everything. Where in grad school, it seems as that it's more so of those little increments that you succeed in and understand. That's what they really care about, right? Because ultimately, you're trying to throw out a dissertation and say, hey, this is something new. It may not be the world-changing thing, but it's something that's never been done before, right? It's new material, it's new research, it's new things that can evolve later on in the future or whatnot. And I think that's important. I think that's important to realize that grad school is about being patient with yourself, honestly, and as well as when it comes down to falling behind coursework. And we all fall behind coursework in different regards, whether that's just you're taking on so much. Some of us are TAs, right? Like, we become TAs. We have to grade. Some instructors are like a more lenient. Some are more, hey, you got to do this. But you have your own classwork to do. You have your own research to do sometimes at the same time, and it can be very daunting to juggle all those things, right? For me, I had a situation of 2019. I lost my aunt, and that really put me through a really depressed state, and I just could not focus because I knew it really affected my family, my mom, because she was always there for us when I was a kid. So it really affected me, and luckily, some of the professors the courses I was taking, they noticed that, hey, you okay? They would take me into their office, and we discuss plans and what we can do if I need to go take a break. that's fine, and I can take an incomplete, and we'll just finish it up in the summer or whatnot. And sure enough, that was beneficial to me to do so. And sure enough, I got the coursework out the way. I can't say that I fully understood everything, right? Mine was still different places, but also the lack of interest could also affect that as well. So it's all about just trying to juggle that, and as well as having the community there to support you for that.
So, similar to what he was saying, when I was at Iowa State, I mentioned to you guys that I had a baby. So if you guys can imagine, it's hard to manage graduate school with a baby, and at that time, there was no such thing as students having maternity leave. So when we go back to talking about having a gap year, we have to think about, okay, do I need this? And if I don't take this gap year, or if I don't take this break, could it possibly put me behind? So by me having a baby, I didn't take a break. I took 2 weeks off of classes. So I'm getting behind in classes for 2 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, I was back in class. So no 3 months of maternity leave you guys get the drift. So I was very behind, but I didn't have that support system. I had my classmates in terms of people who would help me kind of try to get caught up. But as far as professors were concerned, I just didn't have that. And I didn't have someone to say hey, why don't you take a break off of school and your funding will be here? I was so afraid of losing my funding and worried about, okay, well, how am I going to support us if I lose my funding? So it was school just wasn't the main priority. Surviving was the main priority. So I definitely got behind then. And then my father passed away a year after my son was born. And so I didn't have any professors saying hey, again, take time off. It was oh, your dad's funeral is Saturday, so when are you coming back? You got papers to grade. So I'm saying what I'm saying because I want you guys to think about the schools that you are applying to. Think about the size of the school. Think about the people at the school, because all schools are not created equal. Every professor is not a teacher. Some professors are just researchers that have to teach as a qualification of their job. And so if you have someone who's not a teacher, then it's going to be really hard for them to teach you already as a student in their class, and then imagine if you get behind. And so that's not to take, the accountability off of the student, because once you get in that program, you still have to do the work. But it's still nice to have a support system outside of just the students, but to also have a support system in the faculty. So when I was at Northern Iowa, there was a support system. When I was at UAB, there was a support system. So yeah, just kind of thinking about what is the climate like? What is the culture of the department? So when you go and visit these different universities, you'll have the opportunity to talk with current graduate students, and you can ask them about the coursework. Ask them okay, well, what do you guys do to make sure that you complete everything? So I can't say that when I was at Northern Iowa and when I was at UAB that I really got behind, but, well, yes, I did. At UAB, I did get behind because my grandmother passed away when I was at UAB. But the difference in my experience with my grandmother passing and my dad passing is my professors, they were oh my God, your grandmother passed? Take the time that you need. The work will be here when you get back, and we'll help you get caught up. So there's, you got to look at just different elements when it comes to just getting caught up and just the coursework period. And before I go on, guys, I did not realize that my professor, Dr. Alvina Atkinson, is in the audience. This is the lady, and I'm sorry to get emotional, but this is the lady here that talked to Dr. Mupasiri to make sure that I was secure in my graduate program. And so don't take for granted the people that you're connected to right now, because those people could be the connection that you need to get you where you need to go. You know, it wasn't because of, oh, I applied here and they just love me. No, it was because of a connection. So I couldn't go on without saying something about Dr. Atkinson, guys. So.
All right. Here's the next question. It says, I love learning math. Me too. But how should I navigate getting used to doing and enjoying research at a professional level?
Right, so I think research, like any human endeavor, it has its good days and you have your bad days. Overall, if you're doing something, you should enjoy it, right? So when you sum the total of all the hours that you spend doing research, I would expect that if you are a researcher, you would have more happy memories than unhappy memories. But I think to do it professionally, what I've had to get very comfortable with is never feeling secure with my research. I always feel slightly off kilter, which makes me pursue, reading more things, studying other topics that can help me increase my confidence in whatever I am working in. When I start getting too comfortable with something, I try to seek out that discomfort. It could be a personal thing, but I've only found that through that feeling of discovery is that I push forward in my research. If I start redoing, if I learn a technique and then simply replicate it over time and do it, in a bunch of papers with different collaborators and you're just doing your same little section, after a few rounds of that, you're going to feel like an expert in that topic, but you're not growing as a researcher. So I always try to push for that discomfort. I did a lot of numerical stuff in graduate school, and now that I am in my postdoc, I am veering more towards the theoretical, precisely because I want to feel the challenge and I want to feel to push forward and grow. So my personal advice is get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. It's the only way that you can calm your mind and just learn and resign yourself to that feeling. It gets better over time. This is your job.
I think as I agree with that, and I also believe too is that research is there, and sometimes it's good just to take a step back. Like it's a lot to me, especially as a younger researcher. You're learning the avenues, you're learning all the methods and stuff in order to get somewhere, right? Like you have to start with the basics before you can get to the final product, right? And for me, during grad school and currently as a postdoc too, the beginning was very hard to navigate every little paper. You would get one paper, and sometimes like I don't understand what that means, and you'll probably go to another paper and try to figure that out, and going back and forth, which can be very very annoying to do. And it takes time to learn actually how to do it appropriately, right? Like how to actually do research appropriately, and that comes with time and wisdom from multiple different aspects of your research. And for me, coming from as a graduate student to a postdoc, working with radiologists and biomedical engineers, it's a little different from a typical math research where it seems that those guys, they can do a lot more wet lab experiments and get results really fast, where math takes a long time to actually get down and find something new with it. And as you said, it's okay to be have that discomfort, right? Whether that be something non-back of your head or you are not familiar with the area. That's why you do have that collaboration for them to help answer those questions that I can't answer on certain things. And for example, I was doing a scan with my PI, and I was like, I don't understand why this is happening to said image. And he was like, well, it's more of a technical problem, so you wouldn't understand. And he said, you got to be okay. He'd be okay with that. He just sat me down and we had a conversation about it. And he was like, you don't want to. You're a postdoc now. You know what your niche is. You know what your niche is. I'm trying to help you gain more skill sets, but don't think you'll know everything about the world of magnetic resonance imaging. So you won't know. He's like, this area is very broad, and we just want to focus on one little thing. And sure enough, I started to calm down really easily after he said that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to reorganize how I approach said problem. So I think it's very salubrious just to, for your well-being, not to overdo it. Seek the help that you need. Seek the help you need in order to get something solved a lot quicker, rather than you trying to approach it all by yourself.
So for me, because I work for the government, it's a little different from working for academia. Or I should say, it's a lot different from working for academia. There's a lot more autonomy in the work that you do when you're a professor or you're a researcher in academia versus when you're a researcher for the federal government. Because when you work for the federal government, everything that you do is mission driven. So whatever the mission of the agency that you work for is, the work that you do has to be centered around that mission. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room to do things like, I don't want to say be creative, because you can be creative, but you still have to do the work that they need you to do. So, yeah, it's more like, I guess I would say industry in a way, where you have someone who's telling you like, hey, this is what we want to look at. This is what we want to look at. We want you to research these things. And you base your projects off of like what the people above you say. So.
Okay, I guess this question is for Erica. For biostatistics work in the CDC, what is the best part of the job?
You guys want me to be honest, right? I will say two things. So the best part of the job is working for the American public, like really feeling like you're making a difference in people's lives. Now, when I first got to CDC, I worked as, I should say, an epidemiologist. So I was in a program called the Epidemic Intelligence Service. And with that particular program, I was working in the Division of HIV/AIDS Prevention. And so I did a lot of research and work for that community. And I felt like, wow, like I'm really making a difference when you actually get to go out into the field and talk with people who have been infected with HIV. And you get to hear their stories, and you get to see how treatment has changed their lives. Like, the HIV epidemic is so different now than it was 30 years ago. And so just to see the improvement with medical science over the last 30 plus years, that's exciting. Like, that's very fulfilling. And then the other thing I will say is the flexibility. So there's a really nice work-life harmony with the position that I have. When I leave work, I leave my work there. And that was something that I wanted. Now, a lot of people, they don't care about that. So it's all a personal preference. I wanted to have a career where most of the time, when I get off of work at 4:30, my work stays there. I don't take it home. I don't really answer my phone for people on the job after 4:30 unless I feel like it. And I like that. So, yeah, I will say that, yeah, that's the best part of my job now. And just the people. with working for the government, you're able to move around a lot easier than, like, let's say you're in academia. Once you get in a department at a university, it's not very easy to say, like, hey, I want to do research in another department. Like, I want to, change departments. So you can move around from division to division and work on different research areas if you find that, like, hey, I'm not getting very fulfilled in the area that I'm in.
Tell me about it. I brought my exams to grade. Okay, so I think this is a good segue to the next question. How do you find time to focus on other areas of your life that are important to you outside of academics?
Right. So that's a really good question. Mainly because as a postdoc now, I find myself having a little more free time than I did as a graduate student, which is kind of weird. So I tell myself, well, I'm going to do this and that. This needs to be done. I always have to schedule myself just to make sure meetings are going to how to plan out my meetings and my schedule. So I always find time to do my research at the same time getting my agenda just in place and then trying to figure out, well, I have this nice little gap right here that I can just be myself or do something that's de-stressing, right? So I play games, go run, go talk to my family or whatnot. And there'll be some days where I'm just like, well, there's nothing to do right now. I take a step back, like I said, from the research and let me go do this or whatnot. I think I find it really interesting that I have that time and freedom to do so. And somebody told me when I started my postdoc, I went to her and she was one of my mentors in the biochemistry department at UTA. She told me it's a postdoc. If you want to go to Disneyland, go to Disneyland. It's like your work is going to get done. You know it has to get done. But if you want to go to Disneyland, just go. If you want to go date or whatever. And I took that to heart, and it's been very good for me and my well-being and my mental state because I don't find myself as stressed out as I was in grad school, and because that's a combination of things. I don't know why that's a thing, but that's what I do, is just try to plan out my agenda, have the meetings that I have, and then do the research what I have to do, and then go about my day, go about the rest of my time, just trying to focus on myself and better myself, learn something new.
There is definitely huge kind of onus placed on each researcher, and on trying to find time for their personal lives and balance their career as well. I think if you are not finding time to do a lot of activities that you would want to do, I think kind of forgive yourself and be patient with yourself. Try to find those little holes. I have found that throughout my career it ebbs and it flows. There are some times that are a little bit more relaxed and others where there's definitely a lot more pressure, and I just do not have time to do any other activities except work. And also, I feel that psychologically I feel a lot calmer when I realize that it will pass, and then I will go back to a healthier lifestyle. And I've also seen a lot of my colleagues, and I've also benefited from that, where you see all the different stages. Somebody has taken up a new hobby, and you can see that it's around that at certain ages that people kind of relax a little bit more and have a little bit more work-life balance. Of course, there are always the outliers that have very strict routines and have always been at the gym at 5 in the morning and then on campus by 7:30. So there's all sorts of routines that work for people, but I would say kind of be patient with yourself, forgive yourself. Sometimes it will be hard and you will not do anything outside work. Because that is also the price of your success. And then other times, things will fall into place, and just be prepared for that.
Okay, I just want to add something real quick. When I was in grad school, I used to schedule everything. So everything that was outside of academics, really, but everything else was scheduled for me. So if you need to schedule running, or if you need to schedule drawing, for example, or if you need to schedule, I don't know, going out dancing, if that needs to be scheduled, then you must do it so that you can keep track of doing the things that we love, right? As well. I mean, we love to do math. I'm not saying that. So here's the next question. What coursework has helped you the most in your current position? How to best walk away with all the knowledge gained during the PhD?
Could you repeat that question?
Yes, give me 1 second. What coursework, so I think this is sort of twofold question. What coursework has helped you the most in your current position? And how to best walk away with all the knowledge gained during your PhD?
Okay, so as a applied mathematician working in imaging, the best coursework that I've done, the best coursework that's beneficial to me in the research I do is numerical analysis, inverse problems, functional analysis, a lot of analysis in general in order to do that work, and then a lot of linear algebra and matrix theory. Right, because all images any image that you have can be represented as some matrix, right? So, and some of the things we try to do is try to recover. In my area, we try to recover said images from sparse data, and that's a big inverse problem itself. So taking those courses really helped, and for my pathway. So the second question, all the knowledge that you gain from your PhD, I will say that there were a lot of courses that really didn't affect my research. Right, I had to take a class in abstract algebra in grad school. Do not like abstract algebra. But I still have to take it for the course, just to satisfy the course requirements. And I will say that even if you are interested, let's say ODEs and stuff, I'm really interested. I have an interest in math biology too, which most of it's modeling and stuff. But some of the research I do in imaging doesn't really require that. But I still keep up with it. In order to see what's new and what can I bring into the plate. But I haven't used it as much. Recently I was helping out with MSRUP this summer on the summer project, which came back and we were doing modeling in chronology, which was really nice because I got to do some math modeling and stuff. But I don't think every bit of knowledge that you gain in grad school will be useful for you. Again, I'm not an algebraist. That's for the algebraists to decide. But that's my takeaway from it.
So I will say that the most useful courses that I have taken would be general linear models, statistical methodology, or kind of like applied statistics, and statistical computing. So I do a lot of computations and just programming in my daily job. And so I will say that those are the most beneficial for what I'm doing right now. Now, when I was in HIV, I would definitely say like the general linear models and the statistical methodology. And you know how people always say hindsight is 20/20. So sometimes when you're in graduate school, you feel like, oh man, why am I taking these courses? Like, I don't want to be, I want to be a methodologist. Like, I don't want to focus on theory. Like, why do I have to take a theory course? But then when you actually start working and you realize that there are certain problems that you might not be able to just solve with your, applied work alone, and you have to go back to those basic theories to understand why something is not working. So for example, we have a application that we use to come up with trends and look at prevalence in different factors. And this application, we compare it with our statistical programming in SAS. So with one program, we use Sudan, then the other program, well, no, I take that back. One program we're using Sudan and SAS, and then the other program we're using R. And so we want to make sure that we're getting the same results from SAS and R. Well, with Sudan, there was an issue. And so we had to go back to statistical theory to look at convergence and like, under what circumstances does a distribution not converge? So you wouldn't think that we would have had to look at statistical theory, but had we not looked at the theory, then we wouldn't have been able to troubleshoot and figure out why our application wasn't working. So, it's just things like that, where you may not think you'll need something, but then you end up needing it. But definitely with biostatistics, and if you're going to be an applied biostatistician, I would say general linear models or generalized linear models.
Great. Okay, I think we have about 2 more minutes. I don't know if David is around. Do we have time for one more question? Gotta be quick. Okay. All right, so we gotta be quick. First one is, I'm gonna give a shout out to whoever upvoted Math is Cool. It's in the app. And then the question is, provide one example of what happened while in undergrad or grad program that discouraged you. And I'm gonna add, maybe to add a positive note, what did you do to overcome it?
I think I've already told you guys this, but yeah, like the passing of my father and my grandmother, those were, some very tough times, but surrounding myself around people who supported me and knowing who my tribe was, they encouraged me to go on. Having professors who actually saw something in me, that helped me to move on and finish my PhD. So, yeah.
It's pretty much the same.
I guess one of the challenges in undergraduate was definitely not finding mentors that were willing to put in the time to educate you on, because at that level you don't know what you can do with mathematics. I think that is one of the biggest challenges. You don't know which classes are the important ones to take. And in my case, I wanted to go to an area that you could still continue doing research, without it being, the only thing left to pursue in a certain area be worth $1 million, right? So to become aware of those things, you need mentorship. And so for me, it took knocking a few doors, feeling definitely frustrated that I didn't know what to take, where to go, what to do, and ultimately just taking a chance. And I feel like my area kind of chose me. I didn't really choose my area, but I fell in love with it, and so I have continued. But I wanted to do PDEs, and that was a very long shot for an undergraduate. They were not taking any assistants, and so the ODE people were very happy to take undergraduates. So that kind of mentorship is what helped me through a tough spot in not knowing what to do. And I found an area that I'm very passionate about. So.
Okay, thank you all. Let's just thank our speakers, our wonderful speakers again, and I'm going to pass it back to David.